Buying a home in 2025 in Wichita, Kansas is what we're going to be talking about today. But before we go over all that, please like, comment, subscribe, share, all those fun things that help grow the channel, get the exposure, and all the things that get this out to who's supposed to see it. So anyway, I got three things to go over with you, and this is a continuation of the social media posts I put out there about the three things for buying a house in 2025 that you need to know specifically for Wichita, Kansas, and that kind of thing. So the first one is knowing your why. The second one is knowing your needs versus wants. And the third one is knowing your numbers. Now, I'm going to break those down more in detail on all this, but I just want you to at least know what those three are. And you probably got some of that if you saw this on social. If you're coming straight from YouTube, that's another story. But if anything, I'm just going to do a little mini masterclass, if you will, on buying a house in 2025, the three things you really need to know in order to optimize this and do this in the best way possible. So the first one is knowing your why. And I know that sounds hokey and cheesy and kind of goofy with it all, but it really is important as far as why you're doing this. Like, what's your main motivation of this for a couple reasons. One, so we can know how to find the right house for you, and so that you can know the real reason why you're trying to find a house. And so that when it comes time to go through the complicated, arduous process of searching for a home, getting pre-approved, viewing homes, putting offers on them, going under contract, going through an inspection, the approval, the appraisal process, and getting to closing, you really have that core motivation of why we're doing this to keep in mind so that as it all goes on or starts to scare you or gets fearful or complicated, you really remember the reason why we're doing this. Because a lot of times it can get lost as far as like, why are we even going through all this? Is it worth it? You know, do I want to jump through all these hoops? Because there are a lot of hoops you got to jump through to buy a house. It is not an easy process. It's difficult, it's complicated, but that's why you have a good agent to guide you through the process. Like myself, I've been in construction for 13 years, flipping houses for 11, and been an agent for 9. And I got in this industry to solve some of my own problems as a consumer, but then I got my license to keep solving those problems and then keeping helping more people at that. 400 transactions closed, 150 plus 5-star service reviews. I got a knack for what I'm doing and I really enjoy it on it all. But really, what you want to look at in some of these common situations I look at for knowing your why is like, are you a first time home buyer and you want to get away from paying rent, or you want to just start building equity, or you want to just get your own place to have that sense of independence and freedom and have that sense of pride and establishment and start building things toward yourself instead of either living at home with your parents or renting or whatever your situation is, and just getting into the market. And sometimes what you got to remember with as a first time home buyer is this is just your first house. This isn't necessarily your forever house, and you just want to get in the market and get going so you can start playing that game. You also might be a first time home seller looking to buy your next home because you got a growing family, or just you got the equity and you outgrew your location. Like, I'm currently looking to move more midtown area just to fit my lifestyle needs and location. I got enough equity and it's just time to make the move and to go on to the next house on it. And I'm a big strategist, and I like to make moves that make sense, not just from a financial standpoint, but also from a personal standpoint, to just change your environment. A lot of times you got to get into the right place, not only for your own lifestyle needs of where you're living, but also just where you're at from a personal standpoint, like how much your house goes into a big indicator of your quality life. And a lot of it has to do with the location, the neighborhood, your community, who's around you, what's around you, that kind of thing. Which kind of takes me into the third type of knowing your why, which is like if you're looking to relocate to Wichita, like possibly you got a new job, possibly you got friends or family here, which is two of the main reasons that people buy and sell real estate. It's for money or love. And they're either moving here because they got a new job, or they're moving back here because they got grandparents here, or they are grandparents and they got kids here. But usually people are moving to be closer to other people they love because it makes sense from a lifestyle perspective. But the other side of that too for relocating is we're seeing a lot of people moving from bigger, higher price point markets, like the West and East Coast and Texas, to Wichita, to our price point of market, which is more like 267, 275 average price point here, as opposed to like the 400, $500,000 average price point in those other markets. So it makes sense to sell your house there and then relocate, move to Wichita. And a lot of times you can pay all cash, which is one of my favorite clientele to work with. You know, I'm born and raised here from the West Side. I live East Side now, looking to move downtown, but I'm very strategic and experienced with that process of helping people move to Wichita and get to know Wichita, not just from a real estate perspective, but also community perspective, neighborhood perspective, all of that information that comes with that, which if you check out a bunch of my other videos on here, you'll kind of get to know that and see that. And then also the last one is downsizing, knowing your why there. A lot of people are looking to downsize, just the house is too big. They're empty nesters, that kind of thing. And the reason why you really want to know this is you attach all of this why, and it's great for you guys to kind of brainstorm this notice ahead of time so that when you go talk to your agent, you bring this to them and you say, here's all the reasons why we're moving. Then your agent really helps customize the game plan, the strategy, and the process to the house so that they can marry all those things together. And that's why real estate is such a personal business, is because we have to get to know you personally so that we can attach the house and understand you well, and in a lot of ways better than you even understand yourself, which is why I went and got life coach trained on things just to try to understand people better and human behavior, and honestly how much of a moving target that is. But that's why you want to know your why with everything, because the other side of this too is your expectations will get challenged with the real estate market and what's out there and what things cost and how the process works. And if you don't have a strong enough why, you may or may not have the guts to go through this or the motivation to go through this. And the biggest thing we need to know as real estate agents is how much to keep up with you or not. Because we want to keep up with you in a way that gives you good service and attention, but also doesn't piss you off, but also like doesn't drop the ball. If you're super motivated and you're kind of playing this hard to get, we don't know game, like we need to know where you're at so we can gauge the level of service for you, kind of like triage for a doctor with that. And some of this you tell us, some of it we can tell by your behaviors and actions. So if you're not getting a hold of your agent or not getting good service from your agent, a lot of times it's because something that you're giving off to your agent says you're just not that motivated, you're not that serious about this. And we got to move on to those that are with this type of situation. Number two is really knowing your needs versus your wants and getting very practical with this, because there are sometimes can be situations where people make up these unicorn houses in their head where they're just trying to create something that doesn't exist. And a lot of times it's more based on accepting what the market will bear as far as houses that are out there. I mean, there are certain things that you have to have and you need it or else you're not buying a house. And really writing those down is a good process for you and whoever else is with you buying this house, and looking at bedrooms, bathrooms, garage size, square footage, locations in schools is a big one. If there's some school district or job location you need to be near to that's an absolute must, we can set up custom property alerts, custom situations, and we know more specifically exactly what you're looking for to make this a customized, detailed, personal experience for you, beyond just what the internet can do and online and that kind of thing. Then obviously you want to look at features and then finishes. And honestly, this is why I encourage price last though, because a lot of times when you put all those things into it, it's not about what you want it to be. It's what the market is showing. Like if you want all these things, here's what the market's saying the price of that is and what the monthly payment is. And I know that's where we go back to knowing your why, because you got to weigh your expectations against that. Because if your why is big enough, you will adjust to the market and the prices and the numbers that come with it, because anymore that can be a harsh reality you just have to face, where it's like, if you want a house and you want these things, this is the price of them anymore. They're not down here. And that's where you really need to know your needs versus your wants and why you're doing this, which ultimately leads you to your price last. And then the third one that I have here is knowing your numbers with that. And so you start with an emotional, personal thing first, and then you go down to needs and wants, and then the numbers. I think sometimes we can get so lost on price and cost and numbers that it's like you need to start with these emotional, personal things first that drive all the numbers and the stats and all those other things that go with it. Because at the end of the day, life's not all about money. And at the end of the day of your life, you're usually not going to be happy that you saved more money or took all this money to your grave with you. You're going to remember the memories and experiences, everything you created, and the house that goes with that, and the house that helped you create that, and all the things are way more important than money, which is memories and family and the love and the lifestyle that you get that goes with that beyond just money. So number three, though, as I just said, that we are going to get into your numbers and your money, because you do need to know that what kind of monthly payment are you comfortable with? Are you really willing to stomach on this? Because I think what I've been running into lately is how many people are wanting $1,000 a month, $1,200 a month payment when the new reality is more like $2,000 a month. And it's not that that's a bad place to spend your money. It's just that's more of the new reality of spending more on a house. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that the price of everything has increased. Just like everything else has increased, so is your monthly payment, so is house prices, what it's supposed to do. It's called appreciation, and you want it to do that. But it's knowing your numbers and adjusting to that expectation, that new reality of what your monthly payment's going to be, because 1,500 to $2,000 a month is more of a normal payment these days for getting a house with everything. The other thing you want to take into account is how much cash you either have on hand through assets, whether you're a first-time home buyer or just in your personal life, or equity. This is the big one that is fueling a lot of moves in a lot of situations. It's how much equity you have in your house, and the online home valuation tools don't entirely cut it, because sometimes those can be off. They give you a pretty good start on it all, but they're not entirely as good of an assessment as an agent looking at your property and not only helping you assess and read the market data, but also just some of the intuition and feel and experience that an agent has that you can't get online. And there is no estimator or strategy or plan. You just have to go off of best experience and some of the kind of the feel side of the process of everything. But also getting you familiar with like interest rate numbers, closing cost numbers, down payment numbers, insurance numbers, tax numbers, all these numbers that go into real estate, not just to go with the emotional personal stuff, but the numbers too. Because I think that's what can be kind of shocking is when you start to get into real estate is just what the prices of houses are, and just the price of everything is. It can get very overwhelming, very daunting, which is why we go back to that first one again, the know your why. And then number two, know your needs versus wants, so you can really start to gauge expectation versus reality. And then also the timeline that this can take for not only houses that are on the market for a long time, doesn't necessarily mean there's something wrong with them, just we're kind of back into more of a normal real estate phase. It's like houses take longer to sell, and it doesn't necessarily mean they're worth less, that just means they take longer. And then also the same thing with searching. I can't tell you how many people have said they want to buy a house and they think it's like a 1 to 2 month process. And I'm like, 2 to 3 months is fast. 3 to 4 months is a little more typical. 6 months plus. I mean, people think about this for years before they actually move forward and buy a house. So the number that you really need to look at and expect is your timeline of when should I get started? When should I start talking to an agent? When should I get approved? When should I get my house assessed? My attitude is it's never too early with that, but also whenever you're about 6 months out is usually the best time to start talking. So obviously we've been talking to people already, but there's a lot of people right now that are starting in January that probably won't buy till springtime, but that's okay to start talking, start assessing, setting up property searches, which I highly encourage and look forward to. Hopefully after you watch this whole video, if you watch this whole thing, appreciate you. And if you've been watching for a while, that's awesome, but it doesn't hurt to talk. There's no charge, there's no fee. It's going to be a friendly conversation, and hopefully that's the vibe you get from these videos and the content I put out. It just gives you kind of an idea of what it's going to be like to work with me and experience the services we have going on. Now, don't necessarily work with everyone, just full disclosure. It's got to be a good mutual fit, just like any professional service that's out there, and we have to be on the same page on everything. But these are the three biggest things that I see as the best strategy for 2025 and being successful at it for buying a house is really know your why and why you're doing this. Know your needs versus wants in a practical way, and know your numbers so that you're fully prepared to make a smart buying decision. Because ultimately what I want you to do is to make a good decision for buying a house so that you don't have remorse later, you don't have regret, but then also you make your money when you buy these things, not necessarily when you go to sell them, but it's because you made a good purchase, not just for your own personal wants and needs of the house you got to live in, but also an area that's going to appreciate well, a house that's in good condition, and all these other financial pieces that go into the emotional, personal decision of buying a house. But appreciate you watching as always. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all those fun things. If you got any other questions on Wichita real estate, check out my YouTube channel and some of the other videos here. There's also links to get in touch with me, but I appreciate watching. I look forward to talking to you soon. See ya.